Are the new AirPods Pro's customizable ear tips and better sound enough to justify that $250 price tag? Or are you sticking with your older AirPods?
We break down Apple's surprise announcement of its new headsets.
Stick around. Welcome to the Daily Charge. Today is Tuesday, October 29th. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Scott Stein.
I'm Rich Nieva.
And here are today's top stories. Apple on Monday dropped new AirPods, and they aren't minor upgrades like the wireless charging case we got earlier this year. The AirPods Pro, which are really terrible to pronounce, brings a completely new design, noise cancellation, and customizable ear tips. These changes, of course, don't come cheap, and the AirPods Pro run for $250. Scott, why are they dropping actually a significantly different product out of nowhere at a noon press release? Is that weird?
Like a month after the iPhone event.
Why didn't they just bundle it with the iPhone event?
Yeah, it's super weird. I mean, the product is more interesting than the Apple Watch Series 5 or the 10.2-inch iPad. I don't know. Maybe there was an October event that never happened, and that is the result. But these clearly were ready to go.
Yes.
And I'm really sorry because people who had bought AirPods, now there's a new version, but they cost a lot.
Me included. That's true.
That.
So let's talk about that. $250. Rich, you've already expressed opinions before the show.
Yeah.
What do you think? $250?
It's a lot of money. I mean, I have AirPods. I like them. I like them a lot, actually. So I would be tempted, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah, $250 is like another device, it feels like. That's totally left the accessory landscape for me.
I also want to talk about the fact that, for the first time, Apple with AirPods is acknowledging that one size doesn't fit all for AirPods. There were always just sort of these, it didn't matter what your ear shape was. These are the AirPods and this is it. And they finally added customizable tips, which I think is the biggest quote unquote innovation here, even though this is a feature that's been available on basically every other wireless headset out there.
Yep.
But do you think that makes these more accessible to people? That the fact that they can customize it so folks with bigger or smaller ear canals can partake in the AirPod revolution?
Yes, I think
This is where we are now.
Yes.
Ear tips.
It's all about the
innovation.
Tips. It's all about losing the tips, then having to get new tips, and then gunking up the tips. Or at least
Stop
you can replace them. Right. It'll be a whole new world of ear gunk. I think that's part of it. I think the noise cancellation. But a lot of other earbuds, including Echo Buds, have noise cancellation. So that's becoming more of a standard feature. And so it's interesting. You have to really pay up for that here. And there are so many buds now in the landscape. But Apple has established itself with AirPods. So now that's a recognizable brand, and people will go to these. We'll have to hear how they see how they sound. Hear how they how they sound.
We can add a link later on, but Rick Broider has a nice roundup of alternatives to the AirPods Pro that are a lot less than $250. So we could add that later on.
I just wonder, now are my old AirPods going to be am I uncool and unfashionable?
You are. I mean, you generally are already.
Are people going to have to really spot the length of the tube? And I feel like they're probably just going to see it.
They are shorter, right? The Pro
they're shorter. They're hidden a little bit more.
A little bit more, but they're still popping out. One thing that's different is that the way that these interact, instead of tapping, there's a squeeze mechanism to do that.
Yeah.
But what's annoying to me is there's no volume control, right? There's no...
Although there wasn't volume control with the first ones, right?
No, but there was volume control in the little remote that comes with the one in the box. So I just want to be able to... And there are other ones that do that. I just want to be able to control volume.
Yes.
You could do it on your watch, but you have to have a watch. So that's a little thing. I'm really interested in how the pass-through or the transparency, as they call it. That versus the noise cancellation work.
Does it basically just mute the volume or I am curious how that would work.
It's supposed to provide a mix that allows pass-through but some noise cancellation as well.
Right.
So it provides enough
to
hear the outside world. But is that just
having those noise cancellation headphones and turning off the noise cancellation?
It's a little, I don't know. It's supposed to be a little bit different than that.
We'll see.
But kind of like that.
Right.
But, hey, today I ran out of battery again. Ran out of charge on AirPods coming in. Just because I forgot for a bunch of days. So I still would also really like a way to have these all charge each other, whether it's reverse charging or plugging it in easily through the iPhone or something. Yeah. That's a small thing.
Speaking of wearables, Google has struggled in the smartwatch arena and could be eyeing a competitor to bolster its efforts. A Reuters report has its parent Alphabet looking to acquire Fitbit, which makes smartwatches using a platform that's compatible with both Android and iOS. Guys, is that, Does this make sense?
It certainly makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, Google had a big hardware event a couple weeks ago, and they had a phone, they had a smart speaker, they had a router. What was noticeably missing was a watch.
Yes. Do you think that it's conceivable that they replace Wear OS with the operating system that Fitbit runs? Or
No. I'm really quick to say no.
All right.
But I do think that Fitbit provides a lot of things. First of all, a lot of data.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking to get a catch up on fitness data, it's also concerning because a lot of people have been saying, well, I'm a Fitbit user. What's now going to happen to my data? It's a very good question. Of course, this hasn't even happened yet. So, I mean, this is a question before any sort of event emerging. But also, not just that, Fitbit's research into FDA cleared territory, which they haven't had anything FDA cleared yet, but they're supposed to be really close to something in the, kind of like an arrhythmia. They're also been trying to pursue sleep tech that's FDA cleared.
Okay.
That they've been trying, which Apple hasn't even gone into that territory, but Google has been Fitbit has been pursuing that. But you could see where an Alphabet, Google would be interested in that for health tech. And then there's the Pebble element, which is kind of intriguing because they ate up all of Pebble, and now if Google or Alphabet acquires all of Fitbit, then you still have Pebble in there somewhere. I don't know what that
reverse nesting doll of wearable tech.
Right. I still want the long battery life, always on thing. I think but to be clear, for Fitbit, it was really about acquiring more of the app and developer ecosystem for those little apps. That's the part that's probably least interesting to Google because they have their own way of getting to apps, would be my spitball guess.
Well, speaking of Google, the search titan posted weaker than expected third quarter results. This comes amid a slew of internal problems. Rich, can you break this all down for us?
Yeah, well, so they posted earnings yesterday, and they met on sales. They posted lower than expected profits.
Yeah.
What does that mean in the long run? Not really much. I mean, like nobody, Google is not going to go out of business, right?
I'm curious. I mean, you were on the call. You listened to them speak. Did they talk a little bit about hardware, given that they just, like you said, had that big hardware event, talked about all these products? Did they mention anything about how well or how poorly they're doing?
Not really. I mean, they did say that the lower than expected profits were because of spending big on the cloud business and hardware.
Okay.
But I mean, the interesting thing about this earnings report is that they are facing a whole lot of other problems outside of this, and so it's just one more thing that they have to worry about.
Gotcha. Well, this seems like an appropriate enough spot to take a break and digest what we just learned. So if you have any questions about the new AirPods Pro or what the future may hold for Fitbit, we still have Scott and Rich here, so feel free to sound off in the comments or add us on Twitter, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. BVG?
So shout out to Yan for pointing out that we are closing in on 1,000 subscribers. We actually just passed 900 a couple of days ago. Ooh. So huge shout out to all of you. Thank you for being a part of this.
Although you just jinxed us, Brian.
Why?
Every time we say that out loud, like we lose. Or at least that happens to me on Twitter. If I say what I have on my Twitter account or Twitter follower account, it goes down.
People are sure.
Why are you saying that? Why are you announcing that on Twitter?
Maybe I just jinxed us. I don't know why.
I blame Roger on this one. Either way.
You say we definitely don't want those subscribers.
I just thought that was cool news to update. Maybe we'll do something special for 1,000. Honestly, it's come faster than I expected, so we'll just have to figure that out when we get there. First question from our old friend Timothy. Is it me or are these prices for wireless buds getting out of this world?
That is a great question, and I think hits the nail on the head. To your point, I mean, these things, $250, that's a lot. I mean, even the 150 or it was 160 for the AirPods, that seemed like kind of a luxury, especially for products that break it down. Like after a few years, the battery's going to run down, and you can't replace them, right?
That is the issue, I think, because if I think about like spending on premium headphones, you could have a pair that you really like that has parts you could replace that could last a long time.
Yeah.
And then you get to because there are obviously premium headphones that cost all sorts of money, and I feel like $250 falls in a range of where a lot of things I would not buy would land. So and the AirPods did not land at a crazy price for all that they seemed expensive. A lot of the other buds ended up being like not the craziest price product in Apple's landscape.
Right.
Yeah,
but
and even
$250.
And even so, I remember one of the first memes for AirPods, other than
Scott's face.
other than Scott's face, was that
it
was like if you had your AirPods in, it would be like, oh yeah, I don't hear cheap, I can't hear cheap.
Oh. Oh my god!
That was for the normal ones.
Yeah.
Well, when you're wearing these little expensive things, there's a sense of like status, consumer culture, and
yeah. I mean, I think
income.
initially, I don't know if it's status thing anymore. It's become a bit more mainstream. I feel like
New York, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
not all cities.
It's not
are
like
that.
you don't look cool wearing AirPods anymore. That just is. Right?
You just look like a commuter.
Yeah, exactly. You
look like another one of the commuters. Yeah. But the 250 is a lot, and I think that goes back to. I mean, people now are having AirPods that the batteries are battery life is significantly reduced.
Yep.
And they go, what do I do? There's
Nothing.
no option, and a lot of people have been writing about this and concerned about it, and there's no change in plan. It looks like with the AirPods Pro, AirPod Pros, whatever, and then
maybe they'll have some sort of recycling program. I don't know, trade-in program.
There should be a trade, and there should be some sort of way that you. I mean, at some point, they've got to find some way to make these batteries replaceable.
Yeah, it's interesting because Apple prides itself as being particularly environmentally friendly. They talk about their environmental efforts at every event.
Right.
But the AirPods, realistically, and like I'm guilty because I've got a pair, but a few years, you basically have to toss them.
And then what do you do when these are products that it's like even hard to figure out how to toss. You end up with like feeling like you just kind of stick them in a drawer. I feel like because I just go like, oh, I shouldn't be throwing that out.
Like, yeah.
But I don't know what. And then you basically just get confused, and then you have the drawer full of junk, or at least I do. So that is a problem for me. Is like what's the window for how long these last? Right. And we don't even know with the AirPods Pro, whatever the AirPods.
I want to say AirPod Pros. That just sounds better.
I mean, we can say
AirPod
it. We can say
Pros.
it. Right.
Yeah.
We're the AirPod Pros.
You all know what we're talking about.
We can just say whatever we want, and sort of. But yeah, I think that's the question: is how long this battery lasts? Because we don't even know.
Yeah.
We'll know in a couple of years.
Brian, what do you got?
Next question is coming in from other Brian with an I. What is the most people are willing to spend on your wireless headphones? I will admit that I've spent over $300 on mine. Well, it's funny you should bring that up. I just had to rebuy my Sound Sports because I stepped on my first pair, and I spent about $250 on those, and I still love those headphones. What about you guys?
I've spent $250 on like Bose headphones, but those last long, and like, you can replace the parts, right?
Yeah.
So it's not. That's kind of the issue I have with these AirPods, which again I have, but
I mean, I used to love like Animotic headphones and like, but I always felt like there was like a window on what I'd want to spend. And it was probably in that. I feel like 160 was like, is pretty close to the.
For me, that was like the high end of that.
Yeah. And because I also felt like even with a lot of those, the in-ear ones, like Animotics would always had a lot of failures, but customer service had been really good at replacing them. A couple of times in really surprising ways where I was like, oh, that's really cool. But then at some point, something else would happen. It's like, wires, a lot of times wires might in the temperature or the weather, like might get a little hard or cracked or fray or, there's just things that would happen if you're using them all the time. So it made me default to cheaper and cheaper headphones to the point I was using kind of garbage because I felt like everything's going to break anyhow.
Anyways.
It's like sunglasses.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
like
Rich,
sunglasses or my socks.
What is your max? I mean, you have AirPods, so clearly you were willing to spend that price. But was that sort of the ceiling for you?
I think I would probably spend around like $300 for like a nice pair of headphones.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
But with the AirPod Pros, assuming you didn't have your existing AirPods, like would AirPod Pros be an option for you?
I want to say no out of principle.
But
you grab them. You're like,
I don't know.
They're okay.
I'd be tempted on the basis of one thing that I find useful if you're using the whole constellation of Apple gadgets is that they don't always auto switch perfectly, but they do auto switch, and there's a little more seamlessness to that, which if you're using that stuff a lot. Is nice.
Yeah, I've definitely had it like switch from my phone to the Mac pretty easily, and that's kind of nice.
And I didn't expect that I would use AirPods as much as I ended up over the past few years, and so that to me makes me feel like if they're really good, it's pretty tempting. but it would have to be like really good over the base ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
CKT is really excited about the forthcoming Pixel Bud 2. Timothy says my B&O H6 costs $500, both wired and wireless, with a replaceable battery, worth every penny. I might try those next time around,
Nice.
but those are like professional studio monitors. I like my wireless buds, so. Or are they? What's the B&O H6? Isn't that over the ear, or am I mistaken? I'll look them up and figure that out. Next question is from Storm King. What exactly is the Pro feature that makes AirPod Pros pros?
That's a great question. I mean, noise cancellation, the customizable tips. Although, to your point, noise cancellation is a feature that's found on a lot of these true wireless earbuds now. So I don't know if it's really. I mean, it's
the price.
Yeah, it's really. Yeah, you're right. The price makes it the Pro. Sorry, you're paying up for the status of having a Pro version of the thing that we all have now.
And that also points out to where Apple's branding right now for Pro is beginning to stretch out a bit and probably too thin. I think there was an understanding before what Pro was for in the Apple lineup. Now it's become a stand-in for premium.
Expensive, just really expensive.
Now it's the premium. It's a step up.
Yep.
Even in the iPhones, I still feel like when I reviewed the iPhones, it's a naming convention. Same idea to what happened last year. And
they just flipped it.
Yeah. I mean, the 11 is Pro, or phones have been Pro for certain things and not Pro for other things, but plenty Pro for a lot of. So again, it's like, what is Pro?
Right, like they first introduced it with the iPad, right?
Yes.
It was for the professional iPad user. Are we all professional
The real
song
professional
listeners now?
And then
That's a good point.
the iPad meaning has really drifted because a lot of those features have trickled down to the other iPads, and then it's like, what is Pro USB-C? Is it like the faster? Is it Face ID? It's like what are we talking about here?
In which case, do you really need to be a pro to use Face ID?
Isn't Pro just in your mind? Isn't it really just like
It's in your wallet, really.
it's in your wallet?
Yeah.
It's in your heart. What is
What
you
is
have to
Pro?
decide? Yeah,
But it's a great question. It's a great philosophical question, actually. Thank you, Storm King.
it's a marketing term. That's the thing.
It is a marketing term.
That's the number one thing.
What isn't anymore? Yan wants to know, how do the AirPod Pro measure up against the Pixel Buds? Might be a little early to tell that one.
Yeah, it's super
Well,
early.
we've never heard Pixel Buds.
Yeah.
I did wear them in my ear, and
you
I didn't
actually-
write hands on because you know what? There was nothing to determine from that. There was no audio. They didn't
you
know.
couldn't hear anything.
There was
Okay.
no work. They had no working units. So if you saw any hands on,
So it was
Pixel
really
Buds,
just like how it felt in your ear.
yeah. If you saw hands on a Pixel Buds, what you saw was this is what this mock-up felt like in my ear to just sit there.
What we do know is
It
that
did feel like something that was in my ear.
they're going to have to be a lot better than the Pixel Buds 1, right? Because
Yes.
those were not very well reviewed.
Yeah, but the Pixel Buds when I wore them didn't pop out. So at least like if I was looking head on, you didn't get any sticky outy stuff. And they're promising on the Pixel Buds there is volume control.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Not crazy, right? And then there's also
Will those things work for
Assistant.
iPhones?
sure. I mean, I don't know if they'll work.
They're not going to connect as seamlessly, I guess, would be the...
Will all of the gesture commands
Oh, yeah.
work?
We'll
I
see.
don't know.
Right, like the translation feature, that was a big marquee one that they were touting. So
Well, that...
It might have to require the app. You know what's? I'm wearing a Jacquard jacket right now, and so like speaking of wearables, like when you do things that are driven by Google's Assistant apps
Yeah.
on the iPhone, sometimes it requires the app to kind of be like ready, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes they kind of go to sleep a bit.
Yeah.
Because Apple kind of
Because it's not always
mutes-
on. It's not like Siri where it's always on.
No, it's sort of like not always. Like sometimes
Yeah.
it'll bring it up, and other times you're like, oh, I thought it was up, and then when you launch the app, then it's like working for a while. So that's the question: is like how instant. We don't know. I don't know.
I have a question about the Pixel Buds, and
Yeah.
Rich, maybe you can answer this. Because we call them Pixel Buds 2, but I don't think they ever refer to them as 2. Did they just call them Pixel Buds?
They're
'Cause
called-
I think they did, right?
They want you to forget about the
These are
original
just
ones?
called Pixel Buds, and I brought that up when we were shooting the video, and I was like, wait, Pixel Buds, what were the others called? They're like, Pixel Buds. And I was like, okay, so, okay. And I was like, so that's interesting. And they're like, yeah, but these are wireless
Yeah.
now. And I was like, okay, so that's a little, it's
Interesting.
basically like a reboot.
Were the originals, were they wired?
They were
did
connected to each other.
Oh,
That's
got
true,
it.
yeah. So
that's right. Okay.
wireless, but tethered.
Right, okay.
This is like the Spider-Man reboot. This is like the Hulk reboot. Maybe it's better. It's better than the Hulk reboot, but it's like this. It's like a reboot where you're like, here's another movie. What about that previous one?
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry about the Spider-Man dancing.
Yeah.
It's just,
This is Spider-Man now. You know,
This
these
is
are
Pixel Buds. Yes. I
It's
love it.
not a sequel.
Hey Scott, Michael wants to know how the pixels felt in your ear. How was the comfort?
Yeah, they felt comfortable. I definitely want to be able to try them again, and I thought, you know, for as far as that part goes, I was impressed. I've not worn a lot of other wireless earbuds, so like a David Carnoy, who's like put every variant in his ear,
Right.
and knows like how Sony's feel and how Bose feel and how this. It's pretty much for me versus AirPods, but the Pixel Buds did feel like a little more seamless in the way they fit in my ear, and they show that like, oh, you don't have to have anything popping out. That's nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so I didn't think they looked silly. Some people thought they looked like Mentos. I thought they
Yeah.
looked cool. They're definitely a lot less annoying looking than the Surface.
They definitely
Buds.
look better than the Q-tips hanging out of your ear. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All right, we got to get to some more questions. We only have a little bit of time left. We got questions from Pravardin, Eduardo, Ben the One, but Michael Brown chimes in saying, to Scott Stein's point, isn't it unfair that Apple doesn't allow that sort of connectivity to competing earbuds?
Yeah, well, it's also that's for earbuds. That's also for wearables. I get really frustrated that any sort of connected thing, and also with every new version of iOS, companies have headaches. And like there were some updates to iOS in the past that used to break things like Fitbit, and like then they would try to find ways to fix it again. And then there's certain things. So I'm going beyond headphones, but like respond to messages on watches for third parties doesn't work. It's always like this works on. I don't know why I'm looking over there. I'm looking at you guys, but I'm sorry. I don't know where I.
Don't worry, it's cool.
But responding to messages is a thing that third-party things can't do, but Apple's can.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff like that. That is increasingly something that's bothersome for wearables because, like, AirPods have the read messages back feature,
Which I never use. Do you actually use that?
I don't know. It's just I think it's new to. Isn't it like new to this update?
Is it to the
13.2 has like
yeah,
has like
I
an update
didn't know
to,
that was a thing.
Yeah.
There's something that's about reading messages back. So there's stuff that, again, does that work on other competing headphones? Maybe on some of those it might, but it is frustrating because I think between that and even I'll go wider and say how things connect via Bluetooth needs to be revamped. There should be a connections manager on phones that allows you to see profiles and allow app developers to make those. Like the idea of Bluetooth connection was for the land of like keyboards. Now I have like a million things on my phone, and some of them are really complicated, like smart glasses or watches.
Right.
But you have no control over them because iOS doesn't allow you to do very much with it. They're kind of locked down. I think that all. But that goes to the headphones. Like if you open that up and you allow people to build more features in, and you have wearable things. So yeah, I'm kind of on a building rant about that.
Well, that's just these big tech platforms, right? They're all gonna do things that keep them competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, Apple does it with
give them their own
iMessage,
advantages. Yeah, for sure.
Google does it with, there are a bunch of like Maps features that are not on iOS.
Well, and all the Google Assistant, like all the whiz-bang features that come from Google Assistant, they're usually only available on Pixel first, then they spread out to other phones, but iPhones don't get them. So
Yeah.
Scott, I want that to be the title of your memoir. Scott Stein, I am building a quiet rant?
I'm building the beginning of a rant on this.
I'm building a beginning of a rant.
Can we just rewind whatever that was? We could just clip that and use that as the marker.
As the forward.
Tell me what I
that.
specifically said, and we'll use that.
Okay, seriously, we only got a couple minutes left, and people have been patient. Prevardon says, does the ANC in AirPods Pro work on non-Apple devices?
I will have that answer for you by the end of today, but that doesn't help you right now.
Yeah. Well,
Touché.
we can get back to you on Twitter though.
Yeah, we're gonna. So the story is that we're gonna have full hands-on impressions today.
Yeah.
Sometime
today.
A lot of YouTuber crowd. A lot of them have impressions right now, and we're gonna have impressions very soon. Okay.
Thanks, Scott. Next one is coming from Eduardo. What would you say are the better value buds, Powerbeats Pro or AirPods Pro? Hard to say.
I feel like that's a David Carnoy question.
That's a
Never used
total
either.
Carnoy
Yeah.
question. I've never even worn Powerbeats Pro.
Neither.
But
have I.
again, you're going to get impressions on that. Like, I'll just tell you, check CNET
Yes.
later today, going into tomorrow. You're going to get.
We're
all
gonna
that
have a
stuff.
lot of comparisons over the next couple of days to give
Yeah.
you the right context to choose which buds you want.
Yeah.
Either way, though, you're giving money to
Giving money-
Apple.
You're right. You're
Yeah.
right.
But with stuff like this, like, when you, so there are products that like will launch so quickly that we're kind of all, this is like a little bit inside the process. We're all trying to look at this stuff together.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a lot of, on a Pixelbook, I got to look at the Pixelbook before it launched. For this, we don't have impressions yet. So like, if you're on the fence, don't get it yet. Like, I mean, wait. It's okay to wait and see. This is clearly launched so rapidly that and a lot of people have already made up their mind before anyone's looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're curious, we're going to have impressions. Just not right now.
Not right
now.
this second.
But soon, very soon.
But very soon. We're trying to get it right to the launch as well.
Patience, my babies. Okay, Ben, the biggest problem with the Pros is that tiny battery. It wears out fast, and when it's dead, you can buy a new pair. Or what do you guys think?
I mean, I think that's the real concern is when that battery dies out, like
You're screwed.
you just have to get a replacement pair.
End of story.
I don't think they're going to be. They don't have replaceable batteries, so you're out of luck.
All right, flipping gears over to Fitbit. What do you guys think is a reason for Google to want to buy Fitbit, given that Alphabet subsidiary Verily is also into lifestyle wearables?
Yeah, well, maybe it's a fusion of those. Maybe they're looking to, like all companies make acquisitions that look like they're in territories that they already cover, but they strengthen the position, or there's a particular angle that they haven't gotten to yet. And it's hard to see what that angle might be, but maybe it's to help them get to more, to jumpstart more of the health, and maybe it's the FDA clearance process. Maybe it's to get to the point where they have data, because that takes a long time. If you're going to try to get to that might be it. That might be the main thing, is to, where's Google at with that right now, and where's Fitbit at? So I think that's probably the big thing. Google's had a lot of health tech in its wearables, but the question is how many people have used it, and how much of also Fitbit has a gigantic enterprise presence, enterprise health presence.
Yeah.
So that might be another thing. You're going to wear a Wear OS device for your health insurance situation at work? No, but Fitbits are already well integrated to that stuff. So that could also be it, is they just buy up that footprint.
Yeah, and also Verily's stuff seems less consumer focused and more kind of harder health tech, I guess. But the other interesting thing about that Reuters report was that they said specifically, they said it was Alphabet making the offer, not Google.
Right. That's what I was. That's why I was quick to say, like, Alphabet versus Google.
So it's interesting to see what they'll actually do with it. If they'll integrate
maybe it gets integrated to something else,
or maybe, or if it's a standalone thing,
right?
Or maybe it is part of that like larger health tech platform for Alphabet that is really not so much. It's a little bit separate from what they're doing with the watch.
Or maybe they slice and dice the company, right? Like some of the data goes to one unit, some of the hardware goes to another unit.
Yeah, it might be that we never see anything. If that happens, we may never see anything emerge from it that looks like the former Fitbit, which would be tragic if you have been living in Fitbit, because that's the real question.
I know. I've got a lot of friends and family who live on Fitbit, love it.
I think if they did do that, you have to keep that going.
Support the platform
somehow. People put years,
but they may not necessarily like add to that family of products, right?
Fitbit export. Take all your data, put it in a Wear OS watch. You'll be fine. Just keep going. Please. Just go get a Fossil watch. You'll just put it on. Nothing.
You don't hear as much about those anymore, right?
Well, that's the thing. You go to a store.
They're still there.
You go like a department store.
You can see them at like a Macy's.
I was gonna say at a Macy's. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
But you don't hear about them.
No.
But it's like that's the disconnect with it. And I wonder how long standard watch manufacturers, like the big brands like the Kors, or a lot of those are Fossil Group,
right?
How long they continue that works out for them versus when they decide people weren't interested. But right now there's like still a significant footprint out there for that stuff.
I can look like the tag watches, the super overpriced tag watches were relatively successful, like not high volume, but like they were able to make money because they're so expensive, right? So
a couple of big brands that were doing that. So.
Okay, we got to wind things down, but great conversation, everybody. Before we shut it down, though, I wanted to revisit a poll we put out yesterday and take a look at what Apple TV shows people are most excited about. These are the results of the poll as of a couple of hours ago, so I'm assuming that's pretty close to end accurate. When we asked yesterday when Joan and Katz were on the show about C, Morning Show, Time Bandits, An Amazing Story, Morning Show has pulled out into the lead with 45%, and that's somewhere just shy of 200 grand total votes. What were you guys excited about? My vote went for Morning Show as well, but since we got Apple TV right breathing down our necks, what are you guys most stoked for?
I'm particularly interested in C, just because I like Jason Momoa. It seems like a good fit, and the whole idea of a society that's built on blindness also kind of fits in well with our tech-enabled coverage. Not to plug our stuff, but
Check it out.
But just having a society built around that. And I kind of read some of the reports about how they consulted with a lot of visually impaired consultants about how they made that realistic. And I don't even know if I'm going to watch this stuff. I don't have time. I've got a newborn at home, so I don't really watch TV anymore. But if I were to watch one, I would say C would be my preference.
Was Ghost Rider on there?
What?
Wait,
They're rebooting Ghost Rider, which
On
is
Apple TV?
Yeah, it was a PBS show that I watched when I was young.
Oh, Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about
I thought I heard you
It was
say
about
Ghost
these kids
Rider.
in Brooklyn solving mysteries.
Yeah, I remember
remember
Ghost
that.
Rider. Yeah.
What's next?
I'm excited.
Wishbone?
I'm really excited about is
Time
Time
Bandits.
Bandits really happening, or is it? I know it's
They just said it's happening. We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons, because that was one of my favorite movies, along
Yeah,
with
that's
Dark Crystal.
classic.
Those are my two formative movies growing up.
Hey, Scott, have you finished Dark Crystal Age of Resistance yet?
It's funny. I love Dark Crystal growing up. And here's the weird thing. On Netflix, I have not finished it. I don't know if it's because it's the beautiful chocolate bar that I don't want to finish eating, because then it's gone, or whether it's just not really grabbing me to the degree that I wanted to. It's complicated.
It's a lot to digest.
It might be that it's too, when you get to that, it's too close to your heart. It's complicated. But Dark Crystal, I'm halfway through, and I'm watching it slowly. But Dark Crystal, Time Bandits, Amazing Stories. I also loved Amazing Stories as a kid.
I was very lukewarm about it as a kid.
It was super cheesy, but everything Twilight Zone-y I kind of loved.
Yeah.
And so I was really into that Sid Caesar episode about the haunted deck of cards.
I don't remember that episode.
Remember that one? I remember the one about the magnetic meteor. Where
Remember the one with the airplane with the cartoon wheel?
that
Was that Amazing Stories? Was that something else?
No, that was The Mission. That was the one directed by Spielberg.
Yeah. Okay.
With
Yeah,
a
yeah.
fantastic John Williams soundtrack.
Yes.
I'm really into John Williams scores of all types, but I've listened to that score. The Mission, here's another interesting thing. The Mission theme ended up becoming the NBC News theme.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
I have to go back and watch that.
That is called the Mission theme.
Thanks for the copyright
is-
strike, Scott.
What?
Said
Oh.
thanks for the copyright strike.
Okay, never mind.
Stop doing that.
I'm not going to ever do that again. Sorry about that. Blank it out. But that is now I'm all thrown off.
Oh,
but
yeah.
anyway, that it's a great
So
soundtrack. Steven Spielberg
Time Bandits. That's
Bandits.
the one that's your.
and the M. Night Shyamalan one. I'm
Okay,
curious about
yeah.
that because I've wanted him to do an anthologized. I feel like that's where he would shine, doing some sort of anthologized series.
I don't know, I kind of got tired of Shyamalan. Rich, what about you?
I like
Ghost Rider, man. I told you.
Ghost
It's
Rider?
great.
Really?
Yeah.
You're sticking
I'm-
to Ghost Rider?
I'm
All right.
Doubling down on Ghost Rider.
Actually, that's a great segue for just a tease on CNET's coverage today. I know there's a lot of Apple TV Plus attention going on, but today, or later on today, we'll have more information on HBO Max, another streaming service. Joan and Abrar, bunch of the CNET writers are going to be on top of the news. It's 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, so check out CNET for all the details on HBO Max. Joan will be back on the show tomorrow to break it all down for you.
Max has all the Ghibli movies.
Yeah.
I'm really bummed about that.
There's a lot of Warner Brothers stuff. It's a lot of good stuff there.
I'm just waiting for those to become available to purchase digitally.
Scott, go finish Age of Resistance. You and I need to finally get caught
All
up
right,
on
there's
that.
enough content.
Scott and
for
I
me
are
out
TV
there.
buddies, so if anybody ever wants to talk
I know.
about Dark Crystal, go ahead and tweet at us.
Don't
But
do
we are
that.
way over time. Roger, you got to get us out of here. You got to save me.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us live here today. For you at home, we'd love it if you subscribed and rang the bell so you can come join us on the regular here weekday mornings. Also, if you haven't already, please take a look and subscribe to our audio podcast. The links are in the description below. For the Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Scott Stein.
I'm Rich Nieva.
Thanks for joining us.
Can't get enough?
Check out the Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.